detail in each of the departmental budget votes. And at the heart of all the policies that we adopt and the actions that we take, running as a thread through all the debates, is the question of what kind of country we want to build. Many of us in this Parliament have dedicated our lives to the pursuit of a South Africa that is free, democratic, united, and prosperous. We believe in our country's potential, and we believe that the people of South Africa do have what it takes to build a truly great nation with a thriving economy that creates jobs and lifts millions of people out of poverty. We seek to build a society in which every person enjoys the same opportunities regardless of their race, their gender or background, in which every person is free to be exactly who they are or what they would like to be, in which we embrace our diversity and the inherent worth of every human being. Our struggle against apartheid was not only a struggle for liberation from racial oppression, it was also a struggle for a better life, for a life of dignity and economic opportunity for all. Yet, for too many South Africans, despite the many ways in which their lives have improved over the past 30 years, the promise of a better life still remains elusive. This is true for every person who is forced to live on the street for lack of shelter. For every person, or parent rather, who is forced to forego a meal so that their children can eat. For every young person who leaves school with a certificate but cannot find a job. It is the plight of those who are poor, unemployed, and living lives of great hardship that should occupy our attention collectively. It is the great challenge of our democratic government and the intention of this administration to fulfill that promise of a better life for all. We have the skills, the talent, the resources, and the will to do this. And we have an opportunity now through this government of national unity to come together to make this vision a reality. It is, Madam Speaker, this belief in our enduring ability to improve our society, in what we can achieve as a nation by working together, that motivates me, and that is the driving force of this presidency. The Constitution requires me as President to promote the unity of the nation and all that which will advance the Republic. In carrying out this constitutional mandate, I consider it my overriding duty with all of us to create a society that is more just, more equal, more compassionate, and more humane. Our nation will never be truly united in the absence of equality, and it can never truly advance in the absence of social justice. As political leaders gathered here today, we owe it to the people of this country, South Africa, just as we owe it to those who fought for our democracy, to pursue this task with dedication and with a good measure of urgency. As we roll up our sleeves and begin our work as the 7th administration and as the 7th democratic parliament We should demonstrate this commitment in our deeds as well as in our words. So let us engage constructively with respect. Let us show modesty and humility, and let us draw closer to the people we represent, not further away. Let us show in our actions that we are here to serve our people, not to enrich ourselves or to access positions of privilege. Above all, let us show that government will work for the people and that we can create a new era of growth and prosperity in our country. That is the task which the Presidency will focus on over the next 5 years, working closely with all departments and all spheres of government to implement the priorities that we have set out. And indeed, it is this that we want to engage in working with this Parliament as well. There are some, like Honorable Hlophe, who question the role of the Presidency in undertaking this task, or whether it really needs the budget that we have tabled in this vote. Some have argued that the Presidency should reduce its responsibilities, while others, like Honorable Malema, have argued that we should take over more functions, such as the police, for instance. It is important to understand that the role of the Presidency is to provide leadership and coordination to ensure that the commitments that we make as a government are implemented swiftly and effectively, and to steer the ship of government, working through all its structures, in the right direction. Some of you have correctly said that the Presidency has convening powers, but it is much more than that. It is to ensure that there is intergovernmental cooperation and execution. It is to ensure that we break down the silo mentality or approach to work and get everyone to work together. Some in this House have said that we are building a super presidency that subsumes the role of government departments. On the contrary, the Presidency complements and strengthens the work of government as a whole. The role of the Presidency is to guide planning, coordination and oversight, and support for the agenda of government through institutions such as the Cabinet Office, the Project Management Office, and the Policy and Research Services. A number of speakers have raised the issue of the manner in which Parliament exercises its oversight functions with respect to the Presidency, including the possibility of a dedicated oversight committee. It is correct and proper that Parliament, through its relevant structures, should give this matter consideration and determine the most appropriate way to fulfill its constitutional responsibilities. The Presidency, like the rest of the executive, is committed to honor its accountability to Parliament. Some of you in the debate reminded this House that the 6th Parliament, through its Rules Committee, has for some time been seized with the question of how best the Assembly can oversee Vote 1, which is the Presidency, as part of the national budget, mindful of the unique and overarching role of the Presidency. This question arose as some political parties in the Assembly suggested that the Constitution of 1996 required the Assembly to establish or mandate a committee for this purpose. Other parties suggested that the office of the President has grown in recent years and now incorporated a host of office bearers, advisors, and functions. This matter was raised by the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into allegations of state capture. In raising the matter, its report, which was submitted to Parliament on the 23rd of October 2023, the Commission made some recommendations. Amongst others, the Commission said, Parliament should consider whether it would be desirable for it to establish a committee whose function is or includes oversight over acts or omissions of the President and Presidency, which are not overseen by existing committees. On the 25th of April in 2023, the Rules Committee of the National Assembly agreed that it would be instructive for a delegation of members to undertake a study tour, as we heard reported here, to engage other counterparts in comparative parliaments on this matter. The study tour was undertaken to the UK, and it took place from the 16th to the 20th of July, 2023. I would have loved to have seen a similar study tour to other countries on our continent, rather than just focus on a Eurocentric approach. But it is what it is. The study tour was undertaken. The delegation engaged political representatives and procedural experts from Westminster, as well as independent institutions in order to establish, among other things, the general procedures and conventions relating to the oversight mandate of the House of Commons in the UK and the accounting responsibilities of the Prime Minister as the head of the UK government. It also looked at the procedures and structures employed to oversee the Prime Minister and the administration of his office. It also dealt with details of the structures employed within Westminster and other institutions to scrutinize the Prime Minister and his office. Now, on return from this visit, which I wish should have taken place in 3, 4, or 5 countries on our continent, the committee came forward with recommendations. And their recommendations, as I've gleaned through the report, which I'm sure will still be debated here, it said that while the South African Parliament already has comprehensive procedures to facilitate oversight and accountability, there remain features of the rules and practices that could be enriched. The National Assembly should remain proactive and open to reforms to support its systems and practices. And it said, in the case of the oversight over the Presidency, it said the Portfolio Committee on Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation be mandated to scrutinize the budget and spending of the vote of the President. As this matter has been raised by a number of speakers here, I do believe that what the delegation has recommended is in line with the manner in which the Presidency is able to exercise its accountability to Parliament. And I've said to my colleagues that we have nothing to hide. There is just nothing that we can say we want to hide. And we are accountable to this Parliament. And yes, this type of process will enhance the accountability, yes, of the President and the Presidency to this Parliament. Some speakers raised the issue around the size of the executive. While we continue to seek ways to use the resources of the state optimally and sensibly, we have also had to ensure that we achieve inclusivity as well as balance, particularly now as we have set up the Government of National Unity, which is an unprecedented development in the history of our country, to have up to 10 parties participating in the Government of National Unity. We believe that this is important for ensuring governance outcomes that serve the interests of all the people of South Africa. Yes, the size of the executive will continue to be under review as we move on and as our democracy matures. At this moment in our history, when we face complex and urgent challenges, strong and effective coordination from the center of government is critical. We have seen in practice the value of this approach through mechanisms led by the presidency, such as the coordinating committees we have set up to deal with challenges such as energy and logistics and the entire reform process through initiatives like Operation Vulindlela. Now, much as one has been criticized for wanting to rely on a number of structures, what I have sought to do is to rely on the wisdom and the insights of as many talented, gifted South Africans as possible, because this is a country we're seeking to build. With just a small team of dedicated officials in the presidency and National Treasury, working closely with a range of government departments and entities, the reforms implemented through Operation Vulindlela have had a measurable impact on growth and investment. Through structural reforms that we have implemented, we have embarked on some of the most strategic and critical sectors, or have impacted on the most strategic sectors of our economy. As I indicated yesterday, they are in energy, logistics, in telecoms, in visa reform, and in water. It is worth returning to this issue once more because it is important to see the bigger picture. We need to look beyond immediate challenges towards sustainability and to what will inject growth in our economy. By way of example, yesterday a number of speakers rightly pointed out that communities around the country still suffer from acute water challenges, poor quality of water and such. And of course, a number of ministers who came to speak here did put facts on the table and were able to disprove some of the statements that had been made here. Some call for the issue of water as a key departmental issue to be located in the presidency. The reforms that are underway in water, like reinstituting water quality monitoring systems, developing a raw water pricing strategy, and establishing Water Partnership Office to develop water infrastructure, have direct and material benefits for service delivery. Improved water infrastructure ensures more reliable and sustainable water supply. Water quality management systems mean cleaner water and a reduced health risk for our people. The ultimate beneficiary is the people of South Africa and the strengthening and enhancing the economy of our country. The same can be said of the other reforms being implemented. These are not some abstract plans going on, somewhere. They are laying a robust foundation, perhaps the 10 foundation stones that one honorable member spoke about, for sustained economic and social progress. A number of honorable members also raised the important issue of the reform of our state-owned enterprises ownership model. Now, as I indicated in the opening address, we are introducing legislation to establish a state-owned holding company to oversee and coordinate key strategic SOEs. Now, to coordinate, to ensure that there is line of sight, so as to make sure that we are able to see at one glance, on one radar screen, precisely how our state-owned enterprises are functioning, what their financial health is, what their operational capability is, what their policy frameworks are, and how they are progressing in terms of meeting our overriding objectives. The legislation will assign the functions of the holding company, which will cover issues of governance, how boards are appointed. We have found that the number of state-owned enterprises that we have different ways of appointing boards, and yet we are the same government, and we have the same one shareholder, and every state-owned enterprise does as it likes, and I'd like to see that coming to an end. We must all be pointing in the same direction. At times, some state-owned enterprises don't even issue their financial reports for years. And all this happens below the screen or even underground. And we carry on, and yet a state-owned enterprise is collapsing. The holding company will help to coordinate, to have line of sight, where even Parliament will be able to see exactly what's happening at one go. When it is time for reporting, everyone will be expected to present their wares and their reports so that we can see how the balance sheet looks like, how the income statement looks like. And we can see how the policies that have been approved by this Parliament are being implemented. We will also be able to have line of sight on, for instance, board remunerations. There are other state-owned enterprises that have different, vastly different board remuneration policies. And yet we are the same government. We are the same shareholder. Executives are remunerated completely differently without proper processes and procedures. Not necessarily that they should all end the same, but there should be procedures. And all this, the financial reporting, which is important, also has to be streamlined as to be able to enable all of us to have clear line of sight. Now, this does not mean we are going to, from the holding company level, be running these state-owned enterprises. It is the coordination. This is in line with global best practice and is the approach taken by many countries with SOEs that successfully fulfill a social and economic development mandate. Now, the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation has been assigned the responsibility to finalize the process towards the establishment of the holding company now that we no longer have the Department of Public Enterprises. And it will establish a dedicated SOE reform unit with the appropriate expertise to oversee this. The SOEs that were previously under the stewardship of the Department of Public Enterprises will report to their respective line departments in terms of policy and regulatory matters, so as to avoid the confusion. While some in this House might be dismissive of the work being coordinated in the presidency, let us not lose sight of what these measures mean for the everyday lives of South African citizens. They mean more affordable and reliable electricity, cleaner water, efficient trains, and lower data costs. While the capacity to drive these reforms required a budget in the tens of millions, it has unlocked more than 500 billion rand in new investment in our economy. We should not lose sight of that. We must therefore think not only of what it will cost for the presidency to play this important role effectively, but what value the work of the presidency will have for our economy and our society. The presidency will continue to nurture strong and good partnerships with key role players in our economy, with business, with labor, with civil society, and a variety of other stakeholders. And all these relationships will be very, very closely and well managed by ministers and our deputy ministers. And this will also be enhanced as we go to the national dialogue that we will convene to forge the common vision of our country together, working together with other key role players. We will work closely with this Parliament to drive an ambitious agenda of legislative reform and to enable Parliament to play its own important role in holding the executive to account. Just this week, I signed into law the Climate Change Act, the Public Procurement Act, the Pensions Funds Amendment Act, and the National Small Enterprise Amendment Act. Now, these new laws will take our country forward by strengthening our climate change response and building climate resilience, modernizing our procurement system, giving workers access to their retirement savings, and streamlining support for small and medium enterprises. We have noted calls for programs to include young unemployed people in various forms of work, training and development. Honorable Hlophe raised this matter pointedly and said we should make military training compulsory so as to enhance the discipline and get young people to be used to the world of work. Yes, that is an admirable dream, but it costs money. If we had the resources to get all those millions of young people into, for instance, training in the military, yes, it could be done. But we don't have the resources. So therefore, we have to manage our resources carefully and deploy them as wisely as we possibly can. But contrary to some suggestions in the debate, we do have programs that involve young people. These include the successful National Rural Youth Service Corps, which is called NARISEC, which provides opportunities to unemployed young people in the rural areas. We also spoke yesterday about other public and social employment programs that have a large number of young participants. But yesterday we also spoke about how we are engaging the private sector to scale up more and more employment intake for young people and indeed unemployed people in our country. And all this will happen in a sequential way as our economy grows, as the reforms that we have embarked upon take full effect. The challenge we now have is to scale up many of these programs within available resources to ensure that they have a greater reach and impact. We do want to massify as many of the programs that we have embarked upon, and we will, through the various pockets of funding that we have. On the international front, we will continue to lead South Africa's engagement with the rest of the world, including as the upcoming host of the G20 presidency next year. This year we go to Brazil. Next year the world comes to us here in South Africa. Most importantly, we will ensure that the machinery of government does work efficiently and that it is used to advance the people's interests and improve their lives. We will ensure that we reduce waste, we rationalize and restructure our state-owned enterprises, and continue to direct the majority of our budget towards sustaining the social wage and investing in infrastructure, as we have said over the past 3 days. So, honorable members, 30 years after we brought an end to the nightmare of apartheid, we must recognize that many South Africans are disenchanted and frustrated. Many people chose not to vote in the last election. Some are turning to extreme or even turning against democracy itself. We must seize the opportunity that this government of national unity presents to restore these people's trust in our democracy and to realize the promise of dignity and equality that is contained in our Constitution. Now more than ever, we must demonstrate what the people of South Africa can achieve when we do work together. A society is made up of the choices that its people make every day. Time and again, in moments such as this, South Africans have chosen the path of progress. We have chosen peace, not violence. We have chosen unity, not division. We have chosen hope and never succumb to fear. We have risen above adversity and we have beaten the odds. Even as democracy comes under threat across the globe, with the rise of authoritarianism and ethnic nationalism in new forms, our democracy proudly remains firm. And that is what we should be proud of. Once again, South Africa has taken the lead and shown the way. People, many heads of state keep asking, you formed a government of national unity, quite a historic event in the history of your country. Please tell us how you did it. And we will tell the story of how we did it, because this has been quite unprecedented. 5 years from now, let us be able to say we have made a difference in the lives of our people. Let us ensure that we take our beautiful country closer to the society of which we have all dreamt of. And let us make sure that we do not leave anyone behind. I thank you all for participating in this debate. Thank you.
I thank the Honourable President for your response. Thank you, the Honourable President, for your reply to the debate that was held here on Vote 1 yesterday. I request members to stand and wait for the Chair and the maids to leave the chamber. That concludes the debate on this budget vote and the business of the day. The House is adjourned.